The Sports Renegades podcast on SportsTownChicago.com. Welcome back to the Sports Renegades here on SportsTownChicago.com. I'm Ryan Stuprich.
And I'm Ryan Risky. And right now we're going to talk about what's wrong with the Bulls, what's going on. Coming up after this segment at 6:40, Chris Simpson of the Daily Blitz will be calling in to talk about the NFL playoffs. And then after that, to start the second hour, Ryan and I are both going to start an NFL franchise, and we're starting a franchise, not a team to win just in 1 year. So
right.
we need to pick a quarterback, a running back, a wide receiver, a tight end, and a kicker.
For sustained success.
Sustained success, exactly.
And
that's coming up in the second hour.
Right. Right now we're talking about the Bulls. How much of that game did you watch last night?
Too much.
Too much? I was switching back and forth from that and the DePaul game. The DePaul game ended up being what I stayed on because it actually was exciting and they didn't blow a lead in the second half like they normally do, so that was exciting. And on Monday, I had predicted that the Bulls would lose by only 30 instead of 40.
Only 30?
Yeah, like the Cavaliers lost by 40-something to the Warriors. And I said, the Bulls only lose by 30-something. I was only off by a point. They lost by 31 points.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to shoot 1 for 20 from downtown against Golden State, you're going to lose no matter
unacceptable.
what.
And Tony Snell sucks, and they keep giving him the ball, and of course Golden State's going to leave him wide open. He can't make anything.
The problem with that game was Tony Snell, Pau Gasol, Nikola Mirotic.
1 point for Pau Gasol. Unacceptable.
They combined to go 1 for 21 from the field. Those three guys combined to go 1 for 21.
They made one shot.
Combined between Pau and Tony and Mirotic. They combined to make one shot on 21 attempts. Aaron Brooks made the only 3. Derrick Rose was really good.
Yeah,
he had 29 points.
It was one of those games where he was on.
Except the problem was in a losing effort.
They sat him. I think he scored the first 8 points for the Bulls, and it was 9-8 Bulls or something like that. And then they took him out because he had to go on the bike and and work it up again and make sure he didn't get a cramp or make sure he didn't get hurt or anything. And then he comes back out there and nothing. I mean, it's flat. And a lot of people are blaming Fred Hoiberg for taking Rose out so early when the Bulls were being competitive then.
Because Hoiberg's an idiot. But Hoiberg doesn't know what he's doing.
Right, I agree that he doesn't quite have the minutes down necessarily, and he's not a defensive coach; he's an offensive coach, and that's complete opposite of Tom Thibodeau.
Yeah, he runs an offense that looks like the same bad offense from Tom Thibodeau.
It might work at Iowa State, but it's not going to work in the NBA. It's not going to work with the Bulls. At least not in this first year. I feel like the longer they stay with Hoiberg, I think things will get a little better.
I mean, he's going to be here for 5 years because Gar Forman and John Paxson gave him an outrageous 5-year deal.
The problem is this year you're really starting to see the effects of transitioning from a coach that's completely different than the one you just had.
Right, especially when you had a lot of players that fit the previous coach's system that aren't good fits for the new coach.
Right, and also it's just it's stupid because Tony Snell should be replaced by Doug McDermott. Like any of the minutes that Tony Snell has, Doug McDermott should have those minutes.
That's another thing. You are playing Golden State, the number 1 offense in the league by a wide margin. They shoot the ball and they make every shot. Why is your best shooter not on the floor?
Right. I mean, the two best pure shooters on the team, and one of them's injured, and that's Mike Dunleavy. The other one is Doug McDermott, and you got to give him the ball. I understand once Mike Dunleavy comes back, if he comes back, who knows? He's been hurt for all season.
You kind of forget about Mike Dunleavy because he was supposed to be back in December, then he got a setback.
Well, he's the starting small forward, no question.
He was supposed to come back in January, and it's like, he's going to be out at least another month.
Right, he's the starting small forward, no question about it. The ideal lineup that they would have out there is a healthy Rose, Jimmy Butler, Mike Dunleavy.
I'd say Taj and Pau.
Taj and Pau, maybe Mirotic and Pau eventually, like next year.
Yeah, down the road. Mirotic is not starting material right now.
No, I think he's perfect coming off the bench. He's a perfect sixth-man type of player, I think.
Yeah, I mean, and the funny thing is, even when they went 1 for 20 from downtown, I think Derrick Rose only shot 1 or 2 threes the whole game.
Right, and that's something that I love to see. I love when he's not shooting the ball from far away and making stupid shots. He was doing great early on in that game. Unfortunately, the momentum kind of ended real quickly because Hoiberg took him out, and then they couldn't get anything going from that.
Yeah,
Jimmy Butler was awful in the first half.
He only was 0 for 2 from downtown. Jimmy Butler had a nice second half.
Right.
Except, I mean, it's mind-boggling what this is. Tony Snell 1 for 8 from the field, 0 for 4 for threes. Powell 0 for 8, 1 point. Nikola Mirotic
1 point.
0 for 5 from the field.
Right. He didn't shoot enough either. I understand he was 0 for 5, but normally he's shooting more than that.
0 for 3 for threes. I mean, it's so bad. Aaron Brooks made the only 3. He was 1 for 3 from downtown. One guy that actually played well besides Rose and Butler was Bobby Portis, who has been phenomenal this year.
Bobby Portis has been good. I feel like if Hoiberg, because early on Bobby Portis wasn't playing, Hoiberg was a little reluctant to play him.
Yeah,
but once he did, he found out, wow, this guy's pretty good. He's a rookie. People don't know like what he's going to do. He's a pretty good shooter, and he has size. He's tall. He can drive to the hoop. He gets fouled a lot. And, they have to realize that McDermott can do those things too. McDermott can shoot threes. McDermott should be replaced by Snell. And any minutes that Aaron Brooks has should really be replaced by E'Twaun Moore. Because I think E'Twaun Moore is much better.
It's been very good. Did you know that Jimmy Butler is only shooting like 29% from the field and has not made a single 3 since his 53-point game against Philadelphia?
It doesn't surprise me. I think normally what happens when you have those big scoring games is you kind of get... the next few games, unless you're like Michael Jordan or LeBron James or something, the next few games are a bit of a struggle.
Right, especially when you're not usually scoring.
Yeah, I mean, he was great in the second half, but it didn't matter because they were already down by too much.
Yeah, I mean, they could have used 53 points from him against Golden State
right.
and not against Philadelphia.
The interesting thing is, I saw this last night on Twitter, the Bulls are the only starting backcourt to outscore Steph Curry and Klay Thompson this year. So Jimmy Butler and Derrick Rose actually outscored Steph Curry and Klay Thompson last night.
It's kind of funny that the Bulls,
which is interesting,
played much better against the Warriors at Golden State than at the United Center.
Right, and I was at the game last year when they were at the United Center. I think the Bulls only lost by 10. It was a pretty competitive game until the fourth quarter when the Warriors turned it up a notch. But I'm so glad I was at that game instead of the one last night. And
was that the game that Rose had 9 first half points and then didn't score again after that?
Yes,
because he wouldn't drive.
Yes, he would not drive. People were screaming because I was in row 1 or 2 in the 300 level. People were screaming all around me, drive the ball, drive the ball. Instead, he's settling for these jumpers that aren't even close. He airballed more than one shot.
I mean
that was last year, and now this year, he's certainly driving a lot more. He did last night, which was good to see. But I mean, he
needs
still
to do it
makes
on a consistent basis. He can't just do it for one game a month.
Right. He's still a very annoying player. I mean, there's no question about it. He's still a very annoying player. And our guest coming up after the break is Chris Simpson. He was actually at the Bulls game last night. He wanted to see the best team in town come in and destroy the Bulls. He's not a Bulls fan necessarily, so.
I mean I believe he's a Knicks fan.
I believe he's a Knicks fan, which is worse, but he's a Knicks fan. But
I mean, hey, it's always nice to go see a really good team when they're not playing your team because you don't have to worry about seeing them get destroyed.
Right. Yeah, it's very interesting, and we're going to take a break right now. We'll probably talk about the Bulls later on in the show at some point. We'll look at their upcoming schedule at least to see what they're doing. I know they play at Boston Friday. We'll see if they can turn it around there, because right now they've dropped to the 4th seed, and there's only a couple games separating 8th seed and 2nd or 3rd seed right now in the NBA in the Eastern Conference. So, I mean, a lot of it is there's a lot of parity, and a lot of things can happen, especially in the Eastern Conference when everyone's so close.
Right, and it's more competitive this year, too. It's not like a bunch of bad teams vying for those last couple spots.
Right. A lot of them are pretty good teams that could pull upsets, maybe not on Cleveland, but on other teams. So we're going to take a break. We'll come back, and we'll have Chris Simpson from the Daily Blitz and DailyBlitz61.com talking about the championship games in the NFL next. Sports Renegades, SportsTownChicago.com. The Sports Renegades podcast on SportsTownChicago.com.